Welcome back to the Female Dating Strategy, the meanest female only dating podcast on the internet. I am your host, Diana.
And I'm Rose. And today we are discussing the glory of what we as women can do in learning from the power of male entitlement.
We're going to learn from the boys today. Wow.
We're going to learn from the boys. We're going to use the boys as a case study in really kind of learning how assiduously they cultivate power, the entitlement they feel to power, and how they're able to get what they want, even when nobody even likes them, a la Musk or Trump. And honestly, there's a lot we can learn from these sick and twisted individuals that would be to our advantage. So as Diana was mentioning in the pre-talk, just like we look to Shunza and the art of war, we don't have to become our enemies, but we must study them. And that's what we're going to do today.
Exactly. And I think that, there's something to understand about how the male audacity in general is something that benefits them to out-earn us, outlive us, and just in general be like much happier than us. And I think that there is some value in understanding why this works so well for them. Like, I think it was like Lean In or something, right? The book by Sheryl Sandberg years ago.
Oh, yes.
I mean, of course, I have many problems with that book. But at the same time, there was an element of truth to it in terms of that a lot of women refuse to negotiate in general when they're working. And it takes them a lot longer to make the same level of money that men do. And they work much longer to reach that level, if they ever do. Men in general out-earn us. If they ever do reach that level, it takes them like much longer to do that. And I think a big part of it is that women in general are not taught to ask for what they want. Because it's associated with rootlessness and selfishness and like, how dare you, How dare you have the audacity? How dare you have the audacity to ask for what you want? How dare you ask for, for an orgasm or for a raise or, for better treatment? Because it gets pushed back against women as entitlement, but it's not entitlement, right? Entitlement is when you feel ownership over something that doesn't actually belong to you, but wanting to be treated fairly, wanting to be treated equitably by your partner, wanting to be treated affectionately by your partner. This is not entitlement. This is the basis of human connection.
Damn, Diana. I love when you say this. Honestly, like if you stop and just think about what you just said, it blows my mind. Like it is not entitlement to ask for respect and dignity. And yet that is what we women have been taught. Think about how fucking crazy that is. That respect and dignity is like asking for too much. What?
And that's the thing, right? Like we had this thing in the forum about no standard shaming, because the truth is that there are some women who have much higher needs for what they need to get their life in order, right? Like I know I'm a very demanding, high maintenance woman, but I also know that I'm able to provide a standard and quality of life for myself that is kind of hard for a lot of men who are middle class to achieve, okay? If they're not hardworking, if they're not hustling. And so I don't really tolerate laziness in my partner because I know that if I tolerate that, then I'm the one that has to work extra hard. And I'm kind of lazy too. There can only be one of us, and it's going to be me this time.
It's gonna be me. Correct.
I can throw us as close to the sun and recognize that I'm also deserving of rest. And in general, women need rest more than men do.
Yeah, because we lose blood every month. We bleed every month and we don't die. That automatically translates to we deserve and we must have more rest each month.
Right? And when you look at men in leadership, right? Like, again, I was getting really pissed off watching Elon Musk parade his little child around with Trump and trying to pretend to be father of the year when it's like very obvious that like all of his baby mamas are like attacking him on X, being like, when are you going to start sending child support? And like, why are you dodging my calls? And our child is sick. And like him sitting and acting like he's father of the year, to essentially perpetuate an image that's false, right? But it's effective with an audience because the two of them are essentially masters at commanding narratives and even false narratives that people are very willing to buy. Because like, let me just like share this little anecdote of mine. So I was once at like a networking event with a classmate of mine from a school. Okay. And I remember when we introduced ourselves to the people, she said something like, oh, Diana is like this deity. She's like, a beautiful goddess. And I'm like the raccoon you find in a garbage can. And I remember pulling her aside and I was like,
oh no.
Look, first of all, I wanted to give her my tough Diana stern talk to and be like, that shit was cute in high school. It's not cute anymore. But what I told her was, I was like, look, these are strangers. This is the first time you are meeting them. The impression that you give them at your first meeting is what they're going to walk away with and what they're going to remember about you the next time you come. And I remember the next time we had the same event, people were like, oh my God, it's the raccoon. And I remember telling her, I was like, this is why When people meet you for the first time, they have no idea what you are. Projecting an image of strength only works in your favor, even if you think you're a weak ass. If you think you're a weak bitch, that's okay.
It's okay. Don't show it.
Yeah.
You can feel it.
It's about having a good poker face, right? Like, okay, you might have shit cards to deal with. That's fine. That's life, right? Like, you might not have all your cards together, but to perfect that image of projecting strength, people will not try to rattle you because they don't think you're easy to intimidate. If you portray I'm insecure and I am weak and I don't know myself that well, the most malicious people in the world will try to find cracks because they already know there's a crack. They're just trying to find exactly where they can place an effective kick and completely have you crumble internally.
Don't forget, women are automatically seen as weaker and more vulnerable. And so, it's only a matter of time. So use the initial time up front to sort of secure and buttress your position from the jump. Because sooner or later, it's going to come down the pipeline, right? And you're going to have to face it then. But don't be kicking off with that. That makes me so sad to hear that. But you know what? That was me too. Like, oh, I'm just, this little nobody from nowhere.
And that's the thing, predatory men, they look for women who lack self-esteem, but that's why they go for younger women. Because in general, younger women don't have such a fixed sense of self-worth. Like, they're still figuring themselves out. They're still developing their self-image. And when you're at a very vulnerable stage in your life, these men come along, they're like, well, I know what it's like to be a young person, to be a person who's not as sure of myself, who doesn't know what the world looks like, who hasn't experienced much of life. And they take advantage of that person's inexperience. But if you're an older person, you're like, I'm struggling with projecting a sense of strength. I don't feel strong. It's okay to not feel strong. There's some truth to fake it till you make it, but you don't have to feel like you're faking it internally all the time. But it's important that when you make first impressions with people, remember that they don't know whether you're faking it or not. This is the thing, I think it was like a Euphoria quote or something, where one of the characters was like, the thing about confidence is nobody really knows whether you're faking it or not. Nobody knows from the outside. Nobody has any idea.
This is something I want to bring up. Like, we call these sorts of males predators or abusers, and this is all accurate. But when I was growing up, the common parlance we referred to them as con men. And con, of course, is short for confidence. It refers to confidence men. These men would embroil you. They would make you believe everything. And it was simply based on how confident they appeared. And that is still the case in this day and age. I mean, Musk and Trump both are like the most inconsequential, untalented people in the room, but you'd never know it from looking at how confidently they portray themselves, And again, we're not saying that this is something that you have to fake in the sense that you feel like you're putting on a lie or an illusion. This is in the sense of we have to protect ourselves and project as much strength as we can in the world because men are always going to be coming for us. That's never going to change. But what can change is how we portray ourselves and how we position ourselves from the jump in order to have as much advantage as possible.
Yeah, and you know what? I always think about the fact that, I'm sure these men have some rituals or something that they use to help themselves feel confident. Maybe Trump is like, oh, I have a beautiful wife, and maybe Musk is like, I don't know, I have a car. So I have no idea what Musk's whole thing is. Musk seems to be like the king of Delulu land. So maybe, I think he's like the king of Delulu is the Salulu. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He might have started that shit. But I always think back to movies. But I always think about this part in Legally Blonde when, what's her name?
Elle Woods.
Reese Witherspoon's character, Elle Woods, yeah. She gets hit on by that professor, right? And she finds out that he just gave her the internship because she's hot. And then she leaves and she runs into one of the Wilson brothers in the lobby. And he's like, whoa, where are you going? And she's like,
Luke Wilson.
Yeah, Luke Wilson. I was like, one of the Wilson brothers. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
And she leaves and she's like, I'm going to stop trying to pretend to be someone I'm not. And he's like, well, what if you are trying to be someone that you are? So when you first start doing this stuff, when you first start trying to project confidence, it's going to feel phony because you're not used to it. You're not used to having to project an image of strength, And I think recognizing that, well, what if I'm just trying to be someone that I am? Maybe this is who I am and this is what I want to be. And I've been scared to be this person. It's a muscle, right? You don't just go to the gym one time and then walk out with a six pack. It takes dedication and time. I wish, right? I really wish that's how it worked.
I know. In our pre-talk, we were talking about this as well. I was saying to Diana that one of the part-time jobs I had didn't end up working out, which is disappointing for my ego. But at the same time, I wasn't liking the job anyway. And I was saying to her, my life as a musician in this city has only ever been amazing. I've had to do no advertising. I haven't had any website. Literally simply through word of mouth, I've created a successful career in spite of myself in the city as a musician. And I told her, I was like, when am I going to start believing enough in myself to just accept that, like, I'm an amazing musician and this needs to be something that I pursue, not just part time, but like, this is something that brings me so much joy, so much gratitude. I connect with people in ways that I can't otherwise. I shine in ways that even if I'm competent in other realms, there's nowhere where I am as much a rock star as I am when I'm on the stage, right? Like, I tend to be very Midwest humble, and it was literally beaten into my head to be modest. But honestly, when I'm on the stage, it's amazing what happens. I don't even know. It's like an alternate person comes out of me and I just fucking kill it. But it's taken me this long. I'm in my early 40s now. And it's like, maybe I can be successful as a musician. Maybe I really am just that good. And if I hadn't kept at it, even disbelieving that I was that good, I just kept at it because I loved it so much. And now here we are, and I'm on the cusp of realizing, like, I can live an amazing life and simply be the musician that I always have been. And that is mind-blowing to me.
And that's the thing, right? I think that when you learn to source your validation from internal validation, it's a big game changer. Because when I look at people like Trump and Elon Musk, right? Let's take their early life, for example. It's very obvious that both of these men had incredibly unstable relationships with their fathers. And part of their drive and part of their desire to be seen as successful was in many ways to like please their dads, right?
Yes. Talk about daddy issues. Diana, I'm sorry to look at everything that men says is projection. The clearest evidence to me is this daddy issues thing that they're always trying to like pin on women. And it's like most of these men I know that are so tortured, that have such fucked up lives, it's because they're trying to prove something to daddy even after he's dead.
Exactly. And I think that with Trump, I think he was really close to Roy Cohn early on, and like I think Roy Cohn really shaped his life a lot and like gave him the kind of paternal affection and mentorship that allowed him to kind of sharpen some of his skills a little bit. And I think that he had like a guiding hand in a way that maybe Elon didn't. Of course, I don't know much about Elon's personal life to know, but it seems like he was always more of like this reclusive nerd who had a point to prove to society and was like kind of like a Mark Zuckerberg kind of figure where he was like, I want to stick to society and prove that I'm much smarter than all of them. And like, again, coming from an external validation point of view, right? With Trump, I think he actually did have some amount of mentorship. I don't think he was completely devoid of that. If there's anything I take from that, I would say finding good mentors can help a lot with your esteem as well. When you are being failed by your parents and when you're being failed by your father, obviously we can't control the kinds of parents that we have and what kind of role they take, in our lives. But what we can do is be like, okay, well, I had shit mentors. I had shit role models. How can I actively find role models that will help me succeed and will help me give advice? Like, I'm still very close to my old boss from like many, many jobs ago. And I can always count on, because I trust her so much, I can always count on her for a phone call to give me advice about different kinds of litigation, financial stuff, tax stuff. Like, I can always count on her because she's done this before. She's run her own company. She's done her own thing. And so I can always count on her for, advice. And like, she's always rooting for me, even if I don't work for her. And like, again, I'm taking his negative shit to something positive. But again, men who are successful, I think it's kind of like, I'm thinking of Mean Girls where they're like, they have their army of skanks. They're technically hot physique.
Yes.
They've
got the cadre, of the sycophants, right?
How do you get cut off a dictator? You cut away their resources. Regina George would be nothing. Donald Trump would be nothing without his technically hot physique, his army of skanks.
I love that, like, Mean Girls and Elle Woods are providing these blueprints because honestly, they're very savvy sort of psychological profiles of crowd psychology, really.
Yes, and of how power manifests in general, right? Like, like the scene about Regina George, like when they cut open her tank top and like she has like the bra poking through, and they're doing it to humiliate her, but that's a very Trump moment for her because she walks away and she's like, I'm just gonna own it instead. I'm gonna own this this mistake and act like it's not a fuck up and just like pretend like this is what I intended all along. Everybody in the school starts doing that because she's a trendsetter and because she doesn't allow herself to be phased. And that's the move of a boss, right? And honestly, that's how Trump moves. Even if he fucked up, he doesn't act like it's a fuck up. And so people are more likely to believe you because you're not acting like it's a fuck up. You know what I mean? He projects this image of like, I know exactly what I'm doing, even when he isn't. And people buy into it. People buy into it a lot.
Take a note from the Pope and act like you are infallible. I mean, in private, among your personal, intimate people, you can own up to things. But like, the crowd doesn't like somebody who acts all apologetic when they make a mistake. They like this strongman approach a lot of the times. And I'm not saying, again, I'm not saying that we don't have a lot of work to do as a society to move the needle in this manner, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen in our lifetime. And in the meantime, we need to succeed. Okay. We need to maximize our female benefit.
Yep. When it comes to how it serves men, right? Like when you look at people who tend to be successful but humble, again, I'm not including Trump or Musk in this because this is not relevant to them. But there's one part of seeking good mentorship, and there's another part of keeping people around you that will keep you grounded. People who are with you when you were nothing. You know, like the thing is, more people I think are scared of success than they are of failure. I think that when most people, come close to success, they find ways to self-sabotage. Having people in your roster who are people who will hold you accountable is really important. And I'm not talking about people who will diminish you and people who will belittle you and be like, you're not capable of doing that, but people who will warn you and let you know if you're getting a big head.
Yeah, like an honest accounting. They'll hold you to an honest accounting of your behavior and your choices, right?
Yeah, yeah. And this is just in general with leadership, right? Because with leadership comes a lot of money, a lot of prestige, sometimes fame. Like when you are at a position in life where you're able to live well beyond your means, like compared to before, like that's the thing. A lot of people, they end up making a lot of money and then they don't live as per their lifestyle. Like the lifestyle costs increase as well. They have a very untenable kind of situation because they don't live in reality anymore. Having people who are grounding you is really important. I think Musk and Trump have been rich for a really long time. So this is not applicable to them because they can just always file for bankruptcy or buy another company or, sell an emerald mine or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Saudi Arabia can float them a $3 billion trust.
Exactly. Or sell another arms deal to another country. You know what I mean? Like there's avenues to their wealth that is not accessible to the average person. So, but when it comes to like the power of male entitlement, a lot of men get farther in life just purely because they have the audacity to ask for more. And I think a lot of women don't do that.
The audacity is something I've been pushing ever since I first came on this podcast. Do you recall, Diana? I'm always like, we need to have the audacity of an Elon Musk, of a Donald Trump, because first of all, we women are never going to get there. Okay. We have not been bred with the entitlement from before birth, even to actually have that sense of entitlement and audacity. So no matter how audacious you think you're getting, and you might be a little worried, like, oh, am I overreaching here? Am I getting a little too big for my breeches? No, society is going to tell you yes, because anytime we step out beyond like being a little wraith or phantom of a person, because God forbid we be whole people, society's always going to come down on that. So you have to understand that like it has to be exaggerated. It has to be a disproportionate effort. It's like, okay, when I am trying to teach students how to crescendo, how to make more sound on an instrument, what I found is I have to tell them to go way beyond what they think they need to do to even get them a percentage of the way to where they need to be. Like it's unreal. They think they're louder. It's like 1% louder. So I tell them they have to do 100% louder. And they get to 2% louder with that in mind. We are so self-limiting. Our beliefs are so self-limiting. We don't even understand how self-limiting they are. So this idea that everything has to be outsized in order to even move the needle a little is something I think would be very helpful for us to internalize.
Yeah, because the truth is, I mean, it's very hard for most people to be entitled because people are so excited to humble you in general. Like people are always looking to bring a woman down to size and cut you down to size. I mean, I try to understand like the psychology of like these really entitled men. And I wonder if they wake up every morning like, this is my birthright. Like I deserve to be the king of the world,
Yes, they do.
I mean, I honestly wonder. Like I have no idea what they actually think internally, but I presume it's something of this nature. You know what I mean? Of like, I've been given this divine birthright and I'm just like better than other people. And so I deserve this.
I feel like every time they go to the bathroom, like every time they go to pee and they hold their penis in their hand, they're like, that's right. I'm the best because I have a penis. I have a feeling it's something like that. Even if it's just like a vaguely inchoate idea, I seriously think every time they touch their dick, they're like, that's right. I'm the best. I have a dick.
I mean, and who knows what goes in their little brain, but whatever it is, like it works for them, right? I think that's the thing, right? Like I don't think any woman or most women would not be comfortable with thinking that way because I don't think women want to work in cohesion with our surroundings. Men want to conquer their surroundings.
They want to command.
Yeah, there's a difference between ownership and collaboration. And the thing is, we don't live in a society that's collaborative. We're in a society where the loudest man, the most assertive man wins. So sometimes there are some men who are soft-spoken, but have incredibly profound, insightful things to say. But because they're not the most boisterous man in the room, they're ignored. A truly wise man, like this is why kings had advisors, right? A truly wise king is someone who takes in the advice of other people and is able to assess based on these like differing opinions what exactly is useful to him and what isn't. And the thing is, I don't think that Trump has enough checks and balances to be that kind of leader. I don't think he has enough people to push back against him and be like, hey, this might be a bad idea. Because we live in a culture that validates that level of ego, like validates that level of boisterousness, you know? And so I think that like in our own lives, what we can learn from this is there's a fine line between just talking smack and talking shit and being loud and really being intentional and deliberate about what you choose to say to people and how it affects their image of you. And I'm not just saying this about women, I'm saying this in general, actually. I find that the less I say to people, the less they have to weaponize against me.
This is true. You know, this is interesting because when I was younger, well, of course, my family of origin is like literally nightmare fuel. But I was the youngest. And, you know, anytime I dared to speak up and say anything, I was just met with a lot of ridicule. Like, what do you know, little Miss Know-it-all, la, 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 la. And so I grew up thinking that I talked way too much. And coming from the farm background as well, coming from that sort of neighborhood, the teachers weren't any better, right? So anytime I was really excited about a topic or a subject and I wanted to contribute to the conversation in school, I was met with a lot of, it's time to give other people their turn now, Rose, and blah, 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 blah. So just dealt with a lot of that growing up, and I really kind of quieted myself. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that it was a good check to me because now when I speak, which is not at length, I'm not speaking to hear the sound of my own voice. Now when I do speak, people really listen and they really pay attention. And that is a different kind of power as well.
Yeah, and I think like, you know, I always think about the way that Meryl Streep carried herself in like Devil Wears Prada. And like, I think with women, it's very different for men because with men, when they're loud and boisterous and assertive, it's taken as the norm and they're seen as leadership material. If a woman was as boisterous and loud and just like taking up space, they'd be like, who is this shrill harpy? You know what I mean? Like they'd have an issue with that woman. And I think part of that quiet power that she exudes in The Devil Wears Prada is part of what I'm trying to get to, where it's like, because she doesn't say that much, they can't weaponize anything against her, but she commands the room without raising her voice at all. And that's a power of its own right. Like, I think if you're able to command a room without having to say much and people cater to you, man, like a hell of a power, especially when it comes to dating. I found that, like, you know, when I was maybe in my early 20s and I was dating, I felt like the need to fill silences a lot, which was weird because I didn't come from a culture where people do that. But when I came to America, people talk a lot more than they do in my home country. And so I developed this habit of being like, maybe I need to fill these silences because maybe they'll perceive me as rude for not filling the silences. And so I'm a chatty person, but I felt like I was over talking because I was like, okay, it's awkward. Like there's nothing being said. Until I realized that like nothing's being said because these guys have empty coconuts for brains. But that's a different, you know what I mean? Like that's a different matter. What ended up happening is because I was quieter, they were a lot more concerned with what was going on in my noggin than me thinking about their empty noggin. And so they would divulge things to me that they wouldn't have if I was taking up all that time speaking. You know what I mean? If I was talking and trying to fill the silences and being like, oh, so what do you do? Where'd you go? Blah, 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 blah. If I was doing all of that, I would be like wasting valuable time listening to them and paying attention to what they had to say to me. And because I was more thoughtful and more measured and slower in my responses, taking in what they were saying, they were more eager to fill the silences now because, again, like with women, I think it's actually a power to not say that much, to leave them thinking, to be more enigmatic.
Because they are looking for you to come with that audition energy. You're auditioning for his approval. And it's very clear when you're trying to be this like conversational, you know, goddess, that you're not actually there to audition him.
Yeah, you're there to audition him. And that's the thing, right? Like, I'm very aware of what men say to try to look impressive to me. And like, I have like some standard responses that I give them when I feel like, okay, this guy is getting a little too cocky. He needs to be brought down to size, right? I'll listen to him and I'm very quiet and measured and I won't respond immediately. I'll take my time to consider it. And like, that usually makes him want to like jump right in. And like, if he's like, oh, what are you thinking about? I'm like, I know, I'm just considering what you have to say. I'm just like, you know, I think what you have to say is pretty interesting. I'm mulling it over. But when they start saying things like talking about their finances and their income and how much they make and stuff like that, this is a girl tip. Doesn't matter what he makes, okay? He could say he makes $20 million a year, just assuming. Always say, oh, is that all? Nothing gets to them more than you being like, oh, that's it.
Diana, you're so ruthless and diabolical. I love it.
I'm diabolical.
Yes. Didn't you say our task as women is to cause them pain at least once a month? Like, ask that question at least once a month.
We're contributing to their health, okay? We're contributing to their good health. But that's the thing, like, the point of him mentioning his finances is to impress you. And also, I prefer a humble man. good for you if you make that kind of money. But I don't think it's appropriate conversation for someone I just met.
I was going to say, if I may, and this is maybe my old fashioned nature stumbling through, but I find it very uncouth to be bringing up your salary when I don't know you. Like, why? I don't want to know at that point.
Yeah. And that's the thing. This can sometimes be a cultural thing because in a lot of Eastern cultures, it's a pretty openly spoken about thing. Like people will ask you what you're making and stuff like that. What I usually say when strangers ask me what I make is like, don't worry about it. I'm doing okay. Because I try to frame it as like, oh, you're concerned about me, as opposed to what it is, which is a very nosy and intrusive question.
Yes, it's none of your business is what it is.
Yeah, I don't have to say, mind your business and fuck off. What I'm saying is, don't worry about it. I'm doing okay. You know, I don't give them room to pry because I'm like, you're not entitled to know that. You know what I mean? Nobody is. Nobody's entitled to know that. I don't even think my own mother knows what I make, and that's fine. As long she doesn't care, as long as the bills are paid and she's looked after. She doesn't care. Like she doesn't care where it comes from, what I do.
The tax man gets to know what I earn because it's mandated by law. Apart from that, nobody else needs to know.
Yeah. And the only time that my chartered accountant ever worries about my money is if he thinks I'm spending too much. You know what I mean? Like that's the only time I get a call from a man being like, "What are you making?" It's like But that's the thing, right? Like it's conversation that is led purely to impress you. Even if you're impressed by the amount, you have to act unimpressed, nonplussed.
First of all, I'm somebody who loves vulgarity. Like I love the F word. Actually, I love to say fuck, but my number one F word is free. That's my absolute favorite F word. But that being said, think about somebody bringing up money as a very vulgar move. Because honestly, it's not done with good faith. It's done as a power move. And that's what women really need to understand. He's not telling you that so he could be like, I'm a provider. He's doing that to position himself as superior to you in another way, in addition to already being a man with a penis. So it's important to understand this from their mentality, why these games are games that they play and to what ends, because that really gives you an idea about how you might need to move in the world and how you might consider what they're telling you as opposed to why they're telling you, right?
Yeah, and the why they're telling you is really important because even when you look at that's the thing, like Donald Trump is all about talk as well, right? Like he talks about a lot of things he's choosing to implement. People are like, oh, he's definitely going to do that. Whether he does it or not is not the point usually. And I think a lot of people buy into talk. I put men in a position of having to prove their shit. Like I remember when I was in college, when I graduated, there was this one guy that we met in like a reunion from high school. And he was telling everyone, he was like an engineer and like, engineers make like a standard, like they start out earning like 6 figures, right? Not like a high 6 figures, but like 6 figures. And he was just telling everyone about this. And I just found it really strange. I was like, we haven't met you in years. And the first thing you talk about is how much you're making. And it's so weird because it's like, you're not the only engineer here. None of the other engineers are doing it. So it just felt really weird to me. So at one point, because he was like, oh my God, I make this, I make that. And I was like, hey, everyone, drinks are on him. And I turned to him and I was like, you're so generous. Thank you so much for doing that.
Oh my God, Diana. Every time I learn from you, every time I learn more.
Just because I wanted to shut him up, because I was like, if you're going to talk this much about money, like you better be worth spending it too. I don't care about a man who talks about money. I care about a man who spends his money. Okay? You spend your money on me. I don't care about what you make. You can make whatever the hell you want. If you're spending it on me, that's the only thing I care about. Are you spending your money on me? That's what I care about. I don't care about what you make.
We've talked about this too. It's not necessarily that he needs to be a wealthy man. He needs to be a generous man, because if not, it doesn't matter if he has money if he's not willing to share it and be generous with it.
This is like me saying delusionally that Rihanna is my best friend, but no, you can't talk to her.
Right. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like at one point, someone's going to be like, get the speed dial up, call Riri. Like they're going to want you to prove it. So I always put men in the position like, if you're going to make a claim, I'm going to make you back it up. That's the lawyer in me. I'm going to make you back that shit up. I'm not going to make you get away with saying statements, because the thing is, I always call their bluff. That's the thing. You need to start calling, and you need to do it in a flirtatious way. Don't do it in a mean, aggressive way. Do it in like the friendly, fun way that I did, where I was like, drinks are on him. Isn't he so cool?
Because these are the games they play. And if we don't start understanding that these are games that they play and that we too can play, then we're continually going to be at a disadvantage in this world, even more so than we already are.
And that's the thing with big yapper men, you have to start asking about the cost benefit analysis of like, what is the point of having this man in my presence? Is he doing anything for me besides yapping? Unless he's yapping is paying his bills, it's not a valuable skill. Unless he's like a professional yapper.
Right? Unless he's paid for all that hot air. I mean, and that's the thing is like so many times you're doing unpaid labor as a captive audience. He's not even talking with you. He's just talking at you. You may as well be, a radio listener and he's like the DJ. In his mind, that's all he needs. That feeds his ego. And they go back restored and renewed from that energy and attention you've paid them. While you walk out feeling like, you've just been hit by a semi because you just listened to a whole bunch of bullshit. This is another way in which we need to learn to be more assertive, learning how to, I love this idea, Diana, of like challenging it and calling the bluff in a fun, friendly, playful manner. Brilliant. Also, learning how to shut down these conversations and walk away. I mean, I've talked before about how like I have the kind of face that everybody wants to have a conversation with. I don't know if it's my vibe, what the hell ever it is. It's a real thing. I've had it too long in my life to doubt it at this point. The experiential data is in. However, what it's meant is that I've had to sit through so many unsolicited monologues and laments and venting sessions from all these men who are just like, their problems aren't actual problems. It's just they have shitty ass attitudes and entitlement. And so one thing I've really had to learn how to do is like just shut down these conversations and get out of them. And in fact, we've turned my last name into a verb amongst my friends. Like you got because I'll say things like, let me get back to you on this, or if you could just excuse me for a moment, there's one thing I've got to do. And then I go and I do it and then I disappear. Like what I do is I leave them with the impression, because honestly, sometimes you don't know how people, especially men, are going to react if you're like, oh my God, I'm going to tear my hair out if I have to listen to one more fucking word from your idiotic mouth. Obviously, you can't say what you really think. But if you approach it in this diplomatic fashion, like, you know what, there's actually an appointment I have to get to, or I have a phone call that's been pending, please excuse me. All of these ways in which I've learned how to shut down these conversations and escape. This is another really, really valuable tool in learning how to be assertive as a woman.
Yeah, and this is also like a polite thing. Also, the thing is, when you mind your time, it teaches men to value it more. Like, if you have intended to go on a date for an hour, don't extend it to 2 to 3 hours and go to a second location. Like, this is obvious stuff. Because you tell them that you have the free time, and like, again, they start having this expectation that your time is not that valuable. You know what I mean?
Well, or that your friendship belongs to him, because everything belongs to him, right? If he wants your company, then he should have it.
This is the same thing with dates, why we advise, like, don't make plans on the day off. Because again, it doesn't matter if you're free. Here's the thing, like, exclusivity, the kind of time that, like, the fact that you value your time is what signals to him that he can't waste it. If you act like you don't value your time and all your time is his time, guess what? He starts to take it for granted because he realizes you don't value your own time. That's the thing, even with like when you're a CEO, but you're running a business or something, right? You can't just tell every single person, I'm available anytime from like, and it's like basically the whole window of like Friday, Wednesday to Sunday. It's like anytime, any place, I'm here for you. Because you're not a 24-hour service. You're not a hospital.
You're not a 7-Eleven. It's so true.
Not a 7-Eleven.
You do not want to be a 7-Eleven.
Yeah, you're not a convenience store,
But it's true. I mean, people especially men, take for granted that women are to be at their beck and call. They are to be at their leisure and at their whim. So you putting down your foot from the jump and being like, well, I've got this time, but after that, I've got to be on my way. Like, oh, what do you have to do next? What's so important? I've got something else. Like, first of all, the fact that they even feel entitled to ask that question, that they think they should have to know and hold you to account to what your time is for. Like, do you hear the ludicrousness of this situation? But that's how absurd it is when we think about how men feel entitled to our time and our attention. Like, I actually have a nephew who I've been struggling with. He's the oldest and he's been my godson. And so I've always given him a lot of leeway, a lot of attention and encouragement and love. But what I've noticed lately is like every time he calls me on the phone, he's like, oh, hi, Auntie, how are you? And then that's the only question he asks for the entire conversation. I'm supposed to lead the whole conversation. I'm supposed to ask him all the questions. I'm supposed to be the grand master of ceremonies. And at the end of it, like, he has not, asked anything about me. And I know with children, even though he's in his 20s now, I know with children and adults, there's a different dynamic. But honestly, at this point, it's just like, it's poor manners, young man. You're supposed to engage in the conversation. You're supposed to ask questions. You're supposed to follow up. You're supposed to demonstrate interest in the other person. If they are not doing these things, you have to ask yourself, to what end are they coming to you for this conversation? And honestly, it's mostly just they want love, they want affection, they want your energy, they want your adoration. And then they're going to go on their way feeling happier than ever while you're just like, what did that do for me other than make me feel bad, honestly?
You feel drained.
You feel drained. This is an upcoming conversation that I'm like planning on how to have with him, because I think it's up to me as his aunt to try and educate, to try and continue to like help him better himself. But at the same time, if I don't see any change at a certain point, it's going to be like, okay, well, this is going to be a 2-minute call. Glad you checked in. Love you. Let me know if you need anything. Talk to you later.
I still think sometimes these techniques of like gray rock and stuff help, because I think that at the end of the day, when you don't give people too much, then it forces them into position of having to talk to you or the conversation dies. Like when you feel compelled to do something and you're like, okay, I need to chat because this guy won't. Like sometimes it's a good idea to just let the conversation die. Like, and like that's what I've realized also with people. Like, I mean, I don't always go into a date assuming it's going to be the worst thing ever, but when I have, and I've realized maybe 15 minutes in that I'm like, oh my God, this man is the worst thing ever. Like, why did I do this? I'd rather eat like 10 bowls of muesli right now. I make up a thing in my head that requires a deadline. And I'm like, I have to get back to this. And I have about 20 minutes left. I'm like, I'm so sorry, I have to do this. And usually I'll be really honest, I haven't been in a position where people have been hostile and been like, what's more important? I haven't personally experienced that myself. I'm trying to think actively like what I would do if I was in that situation. Again, you can use these kind of things to your favor, because I usually just say something like, well, a very popular girl. Lots of people want my time.
Yes, exactly.
I don't ever answer their questions directly if it's a question I don't want to answer. That's something I've realized, like, that's something politicians do really well. You ask them a direct question and they never respond with the direct answer. They're always like, well, in theory, I would love to be the person who dates you. But in practice, I'm popular and I have to go elsewhere,
It's so true. It's so true. I mean, these are tactics and strategies that really do serve us well. And I think, honestly, Diana, a lot of times we don't try it because we catastrophize and we imagine the worst case scenario happening. But most often that never happens.
That's the thing. You can do it in a friendly way. Look, even if it's a guy that I'm not interested in, but I want to flatter him and I want to move the hell on because I don't want him to like stalk me on my way home and murder me. Even if I pull that like kind of, oh, I'm a popular girl line. And I mean, if he says something like, I'm just like thinking it out, like I'm doing a thought experiment in my brain right now. And I'm like, what if he said something, oh, you're going to ride the cock carousel or something outlandish like that? First of all, that's the biggest red flag. You never meet him again, right? Again, men's egos are so fragile, you can validate it any old way. But I'm like, but don't miss me too much when I'm gone, okay? Like, I'm usually very like friendly with them, where in the sense that like, I'm like, I know you want me to stay because you're going to miss me so much. I know I'm just that charming. Unfortunately, I do have to go, but it was lovely talking to you. Like, leave men. I do this with other people who I'm like, I need to find a way to exit this conversation in a diplomatic way without hurting their feelings, right? Because nobody wants their feelings hurt, and it's fine. Look, sometimes you can be like brusque and you can be brutal and you can be like, fuck you and I'm leaving. But sometimes you don't want to do that because it doesn't warrant.
Yeah, it's not a stone cold bitch approach. You're not going out like burning shit down,
So the thing is, sometimes I exit gracefully and diplomatically because sometimes it does not warrant that level of reaction. You have to decide when it's worth being measured and when it's worth going full nuclear, right? And not everything deserves a full nuclear response because, again, I might want to exit the situation diplomatically because I don't want this crazy person blowing up my phone and acting entitled. And like this goes back to our episode about boundaries in general, where it's like, sometimes there are things I want to do that people will push back on and be like, well, why do you have to go to the gym? Why can't you spend more time with me? And so people don't take it seriously when you have to, like, when you have goals, like, you want to work on your body, you want to work on your mindset, you have like things to do. People will always try to find ways to prevent you from doing those things that you want to do. And I found that in general, a vague, I have an appointment works much better than saying I have to go to the gym. Even if the appointment means I'm going to go take a nap. And I don't have time to people. But again, this is about like people who don't want to offend people don't want to hurt people. Yeah, sometimes through life, you just end up hurting people. You don't mean to do it. It just happens, right? Sometimes you have to hurt people because men don't understand no, and you have to be direct, right? But sometimes when I first meet a person, I know it's not a vibe. I don't want to sit through the whole date. And that's just me. I don't want to sit through the whole thing knowing that I'm not going to enjoy this. This is the thing. Men say they want brutal honesty. They don't. If you were to tell them what you actually felt in that moment, they would probably go to bed and cry about it or they'd shoot you, right? One of the two. So, and I don't want to get shot. I like living. So I usually exit in a way that's diplomatic without hurting their feelings. And I just try to keep it friendly. I try to keep it like, oh, what do you have to do that's so important? I've never been asked that. If I was asked that, I'd be like, sometimes I just guilt trip them. I make up something that sounds really serious and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I have to take my chihuahua to the vet because I have to put him down, whatever. You know what I mean? I don't even have a chihuahua. I don't have a chihuahua. So
no, it's true. I feel like we imagine the worst case scenario in their response to us, but also something we don't realize is like they are also so brutally vulnerable in their ego. They don't want to be hurt. And so they're not going to push a lot of the time. And if they do, and this is something that we were going to wrap up this conversation with, if they do, these are red flags that are indicating that this is a potential psycho. Okay. So a man who's not going to act, even if it's a plausible lie, okay, even if you're like, oh man, this does sound like a lie, like I really can't get away with it. In polite society, everybody knows, even if it's a polite lie, you just let him get away with it. There's no benefit to challenging somebody on it. Just let them be on their way. But if a man does and grows quarrelsome, run the fuck the other way. This is absolutely a red flag.
Run, yeah, yeah. Sometimes a well-timed family emergency is also something that he can't question. It's like, oh, what do you have going on? Family emergency. Doesn't need to know. He doesn't need to know what's going on. He doesn't need to know what's happening, right? I think that even with red flags to watch out for, like overconfident men are scary. Watch out for those kinds of men in general. Like insecure men or overconfident men, like there's a difference between being self-assured and knowing what you're worth and like being overconfident. And a lot of overconfident men are sometimes hostile and aggressive.
Yeah, I feel like this is the dividing line between a covert narcissist and a full-blown narcissist. Like the full-blown narcissist is absolutely overconfident, but there's also the covert narcissist who's like, oh, he's so humble and he's so modest. He couldn't dare to trouble you for a date. But these are also techniques they use. These are further games that they use so that you're like, oh, no, I'm going to prove that I'm a nice person. I'm going to go on a date with you. And like men will literally entrap you into whole ass marriages with this technique. And by the time you realize it, you've like combined finances and you're basically like chained at the hip, and they know this. They will use our good natures, our better natures against us. And this is why I'm always encouraging Diana to teach us more about what she calls her ruthlessness. I think it's really just good common sense that we haven't been taught because too many of us would remain single if we actually employed it.
And that's the thing. Sometimes you can't employ the ruthless direct strategy for many reasons, right? Rarely can you. Like sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not worth it. It really is on a case by case basis. But I find evasive tactics are much more effective in general. Being evasive and not being committal. Men are not stupid either. They know when you're not into them. But the kind of guy who's hostile about it, who's like, how dare you? You led me on. We were together for 20 minutes eating KFC and I can't believe, you know what I mean? Don't go on these dates. You know what I mean? Like the kind of person who's like overreacting to something in itself shows some instability, right? Because he is overtly attached to a person he just met. And that's not a healthy way to go through life. Like start reading people for what they are and being like, this is an unhealthy person.
The instability, I think, is important.
And you need to leave them where they are. Yeah. You need to leave them where they are to cope and deal and like figure out what it is in their life that's not working for them. But like in general, like this is why we say things like negging and all these other things, like these very overconfident men who think that like, okay, I finally met somebody who is more than my match, but I can't get her by being an equal. I have to like neg her and bring her down a peg so that I can get her. We already know these things as like, we don't need to repeat this because we've repeated this on this platform many times. It's like, avoid these people. But the thing is, a lot of people think just because somebody is loud and confident that they're suddenly extremely educated, good people, or really smart, like deserving of your time and energy. And the truth is, unless they treat you personally well and they treat the people around them with respect, they're just loud.
Right. I was just going to say, I've always liked the Teddy Roosevelt quote, which is to walk softly and carry a big stick. Honestly, that's my dream man right there. I mean, I definitely want him carrying a big stick. I get it.
I like the quote for women. It's like a velvet glove on around an iron fist or something.
Iron fist. Yeah. Yes, that's my approach to teaching, actually, because all the kids love how friendly and warm I am. And then there comes a point where I'm like, all right, the iron fist is coming out. They're like, oh shit, I really believe her now. Because it's a weird psychological line that you're walking, but they respond really well to it. And so we don't have to act like these loud confidence con men. We can learn from their tactics. We can observe what the game is, and we can call the game when we don't want to play it. But really what we're trying to advocate for is that you become assertive and an advocate for your own best life.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like these men, like they throw around corporate words and like things like synergy and like whatever else. It's like Six Sigma, all these like terms, all these things made you laugh so hard you're coughing.
All just made up. It's all bullshit. It's I'm laughing so hard I'm coughing. It's true. It's all balderdash.
All this made up stuff to make them sound important, right? But the truth is, like, if you hear what they say, they're very direct when you ask them a direct question. And they know the art of answering evasively. And sometimes if you are speaking to a man, especially in a dating situation, to answer evasively when you've already determined that this is not a good fit. Of course, this is why we have like pre-vetting strategies like, do a video call and all those things. But sometimes even that can be deceptive and you might not gauge like, that person is a good person or not. And then you go on the date and you're like, I'm not physically attracted to them. They're a little weird. They're giving me seriously whatever, Ted Bundy energy, whatever it is, right? You trust your instincts. Like, that's the most important thing. Once you determine that it's not a fit, you're not obligated to sit through the whole thing. This is one thing that women need to understand as well. You don't need to sit through the whole thing just because you're like, well, I agreed to sit down dinner, now I have to sit through it the entire hour.
It's the sunk cost fallacy. From micro to macro, this is how women are most often entrapped. It's the sunk cost fallacy.
And it's also this desire to be polite, right? It's like, I need to be polite. And it's like, well, this is a stranger. You don't owe politeness. The politeness was already done by you agreeing to go to the dinner. Having to sit through the entire dinner when you know it's not a fit, like, don't waste his time, don't waste your time either, right? Of course, they can't handle you being like, I don't like you and I don't think this is a fit. So if you have to make up an excuse, you have to make up a lie to bounce, that's okay. Dip.
That's okay. And just remember, I just had this Shakespeare quote come to mind. It was like, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. This is basically like all of these men that bluster and cape and monologue, etc. They are often the emptiest men you'll ever meet. This is who you need to avoid.
Yeah, empty vessels make the most noise.
That's right. They're the ones who need to die mad. Period.
Yeah. Die mad.
Until next week.
Until next week.